Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and we are looking at the SysOps Administrator Associate, and this is an AWS certification specializing in the deployment, management, and operations of cloud infrastructure, and specifically AWS infrastructure. And you might want to consider getting this certification if you like building systems that support applications, working with Linux, working with cloud networking, or if you're not a huge fan of coding, but you don't mind doing a little bit for the job, like basic scripting, then this is the certification for you. And the SysOps admin is becoming extremely popular in the cloud space, in the AWS space, because of the rise of DevOps careers. So there's a lot more information about DevOps, and people are getting really excited about it, and there's a lot of jobs opening up. So this could become more popular than the Solutions Architect Associate. We'll have to see within time, but it's definitely something that's very popular right now. And a lot of people will say this is the most difficult exam at the associate level. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think what makes it really hard is that in order to understand cloud networking, you have to have essential networking knowledge, and it just is not something that is generally covered in certification courses because it's expected you take a prerequisite course, but I happen to pack it in here because I want you to have an easy exam, okay? So don't worry, I got you covered on that part, and hopefully it's not the hardest associate exam for you. So here I have a certification roadmap, and the idea here is just to show you all the opportunities where you can go in terms of job title if you get the system administrator and beyond, okay? So we'll just start with the first one, which is a cloud engineer. So cloud engineer involves the same responsibilities as a web developer, but it puts a greater emphasis on utilizing cloud services, and they're not really focused on infrastructure, but the thing is I include it in here anyway because a lot of people that want to be a cloud engineer, they still have to have cloud networking knowledge, and that's going to be in the SysOps administrator. So it's a really good cert to balance it out if you want to be a cloud engineer, but it's not really focused on infrastructure, but that cloud networking component is what you want to get. If you want to become a junior DevOps engineer, also known as a systems or SysOps administrator, systems administrator, or a cloud support engineer, this kind of role is responsible for reacting to instances that occur. So if your web server goes down in the middle of the night, it's going to be you who's going to be fixing it. So you might not necessarily be setting up or architecting the infrastructure. There would be like a DevOps person doing that, but your job would be to maintain it and respond to issues. And so the path here would be the CCP onto the SysOps. And this is really a junior role, and it's a good entry into the DevOps industry. So that might be something that you'll want to look at. Then we have the cloud security engineer. So this is a security engineer focused on the overall security of cloud infrastructure. Security is great because you have to have deep understanding of the services. So if you like digging deep and thinking about ways of how the system can be compromised, this could be the role for you. And what I like about this role is that if you want to go for it, you don't have to go pro. You can just take a SysOps and then go straight to a security specialty if you want to do that. Then there's the DevOps engineer, and this is like for a lot of people is the end goal of getting into a role into DevOps, but this one is different from the junior DevOps engineer because you actually design the infrastructure, and not only that, you are automating it so that it just happens to work, okay? So this is a really fun role if you can get to that, and the path here would be CCP, SysOps, and then the DevOps engineer. Now, if we want to look at some kind of specialization beyond the DevOps, we have a few interesting titles here, like the Site Reliability Engineer, also known as SRE, and their role is focused on implementing strategies of like disaster recovery, fault tolerance, high availability, or boosting the performance. So they're just like a DevOps engineer, but they just specialize in this particular role of optimization. And if you do want to go for this role, you could just get the DevOps engineer and then learn on your own. If you want to grab another certification that is relevant to this, I would probably say the database certification, because that is one where you have to focus around a lot about disaster recovery, fault tolerance, and stuff like that. But you don't have to take that last one there. Then you have data engineer, very popular emerging role in the data industry. But a data engineer thinks about how data moves and is stored. So they have to have deep knowledge about scaling, configuration, and messaging systems. But they also are responsible for scaling out machine learning algorithms. So if you have a data scientist, they come up with a prototype, but they don't necessarily know how to make it work at scale. So they give it to the data engineer. The data engineer doesn't need to really know ML, in great detail, but enough to scale it out for them. So the path here is a few more certs. So you go CCP, SysOps, DevOps engineer, you go for your database, and then you go for your machine learning one. So that is the data engineer, and that's a really cool role to get. Then you have DevSecOps engineer. This is a highly specialized role. It is basically security meeting DevOps. So the idea is that as a DevOps engineer, you architect and you automate infrastructure, but it's all around responding to security incidences or remediation or security threats or detecting security breaches. And to me, this is really fun. So if you like the idea of being a security engineer, but you really want to architect automation and stuff like that, this is going to be the path you're going to go. You're going to go CCP, SysOps, DevOps engineer, and then the security specialty certification. And the last one on the list here is a cloud networking engineer. And this is just a DevOps engineer that specializes in networking and specifically like hybrid architecture or dealing with security, latency, cost of data flowing within a large organization, a large network. And so the path here is very similar. It's going to be CCP, SysOps, DevOps engineer, and advanced networking. So you can see there is a lot of opportunity here if you take the SysOps route. But let's go talk about the exam and exactly where do you take this exam. So the exam is either taken in person at a test center or online from the convenience of your home with a test center network. If you are going to take it in person, you're going to probably use PSI, or if you're going to take it online, you're going to use Pearson VUE. I'm pretty sure Pearson VUE has in person as well. I'm not sure, but it's known for doing online. I recommend always taking in person if you can, because I find it like Pearson VUE is just stressful if the internet goes out. And there's a lot of pre-clearance checks, but you decide what you want to do. And it depends if the exams are available. The SysOps may or may not be available online. It just depends if you're in a pandemic or not. But we'll see, okay? And I just want to point out the word proctored there. So whenever we say an exam is proctored, that means that there's a supervisor person who monitors the students for examination. So if someone says a proctored exam, they're just saying you can take it online at home, okay? So let's talk about some of the certification details. This one costs $150 USD to take. You get 130 minutes on the actual exam. There's 65 questions. The passing grade is 72%. And when you got it, you can hold it on for 3 years. Now, if you do go get a pro, that will automatically renew your associate level. Okay, so if you don't want to go sit it again and you go to the pro level, that is usually a better strategy down the road. Now, a lot of people will ask me, how long should you study? Like how much time I have to put in, and the recommended time is between 1 to 3 hours a day for 21 days. But just to give you a better scope based on where you are, if you're a developer or a junior developer, I'd say 1.5 months of study. This exam is a little bit more intensive than the solution architect and developer, so it requires a little bit more study time. If you're bootcamp grad, you're looking at 2.5 months. If you're a DevOps engineer, you're looking at 35 hours. So it's just going to depend on your skill level and your background. And so what does it take to pass this exam? Well, you're going to have to watch lecture videos and memorize key information. You're going to have to do the hands-on labs and follow along within your AWS account. Not so much as the developer. The developer associate requires a lot of hands-on. The solution architect does not require any hands-on, but this one requires a bit of both. Okay. And the last thing that I have to point out is that you're going to probably have to get paid online practice exams to simulate the real exam. Unfortunately, at the associate level, and especially with the SysOps, this is one where it's going to be really hard to just study and take the exam. You totally can do it. You could just double your study time. But if you're looking for practice exams, we do have them, and we do really appreciate your support because it helps us produce more free-to-watch video content. But yeah, there you go. So hopefully that gives you a good idea whether you should be taking this exam, and then we'll look onto the exam guide.